Okay.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, also, if there are problems or issues or challenges, please use the WhatsApp call to let us know to call offline. Everybody has the WhatsApp app and have our contact. Is that right?
Yep, I do.
Very good, very good, very good. Okay, that's awesome. Okay, and so let us proceed. So we're delighted to have you all here for the first of a series of events regarding our uh, Brightside Global Trade and our programmed organization. And we are delighted to have you all here. We are inspired by each of you, and we know that you all bring a special caliber of gifts, and we want to make sure that we are able to display and present the gifts and articulate to those who need a better clarity and understanding about health, about wellness, procedures, steps that are required. And so your gifts mean a great deal. And so, I want you all to say with me as we go into this, great things are going to happen today. Say it. Great things are going to happen today.
Happen today.
Say it now.
Great
Great
things are going
things
to
are going
happen
to happen
today.
Happen
today
today.
for me, with me, through me.
For
That,
me,
For me,
that
with me, and through
with me,
me.
through me.
for me, with me, and through me. Great things are going to happen today. So I am inspired by you all and your presence and bringing these things to bear. So, so with that being said, let me just reach over for my phone to grab it before it makes too much noise.
So
Okay.
without, because we have very limited time and we have a lot to do today,
Yep.
I'd like to give you all some quick instructions. First of all, make sure that you know that you're being recorded. Make sure that you know that we have authors who are sharing their life stories and experiences of going through chronic illnesses. This is not a replacement for your doctor. Please go see your doctor. We are just sharing information. This group is primarily for information sharing and for upliftment and empowerment to each other. And we do that through networking. So I just want to say that up front. So
Okay.
today we have a packed day, and I want to bring on our keynote speaker and our platinum sponsor, Dr. John Poothullil.
But before
So
Dr. John deserves a drum roll. He deserves. I mean, you have to know the incredible capacity that Dr. John has displayed and presented in his books. He's a relevant authority and medical professional on three different continents, and he has done incredible research regarding the area of studies which we're discussing today, which is diabetes and insulin resistance. And he is, as well as people know him through his books. I think you'll find him to be delightfully knowledgeable and also accessible with your questions. And so he will bring a favor to bear for this particular presentation. Now, just so that you know, 1 in 3 Americans suffer from diabetes. 1 in 3. That's 30% of the population. I think the pharmaceuticals are doing the research on the chronic illness, but I think he brings a incredible bright light to a chronic illness that Americans are suffering through and around the world. So I think you will find him delightfully influential. And so, without further delay or ado, I have the privilege to introduce to you Dr. John Poothullil. Dr. John Poothullil. I'm sorry, Dr. John Poothullil. Dr. John, please join us.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Elton, for arranging this conference, and thank you all for attending. The title of the conference is Health and Wellness. And my talk is about health during and after COVID-19 with emphasis on type 2 diabetes. If health can be defined based on the state of the body and mind, wellness can be defined as a mood or feeling. While the absence of illness can be used to assess the state of health, how do you measure wellness? For example, you cannot measure the degree of happiness. Yet, even if you are not ill, if you are afraid of catching something immediately, that affects your wellness, as is the case with the present COVID-19 pandemic. Now, it is well known that an infection of COVID-19 in a person with type 2 diabetes can have severe complications. Why is that? According to experts, it is because there is reduced immune response in a person with diabetes. What does that mean? Ordinarily, if you have reduced immune response, you should be more prone to get infection. It should be easier. Yet, there is no evidence to suggest people with type 2 diabetes catch COVID-19 more easy than those who don't have diabetes. So that is not the case. Then why is the infection more severe? The interesting part is it is not unique to COVID-19. Any infection in a person with type 2 diabetes can have severe complications. That means it is more a peculiarity of state of diabetes and the agent of infection. How is this possible? What is the mechanism? Because without knowing that, we cannot prevent the same thing from happening with another infection. So, to understand that, let's look at the immune system. What does the immune system do? We have the immune system to prevent or to protect us from pathogens, whether it is virus, bacteria, parasites, whatever. There are two divisions of the immune system, the antibodies and the white cells. The antibodies are that are created when you get a vaccine. These antibodies prevent the pathogen from establishing in your body. So that's the first step. White cells are to kill pathogens which are multiplying in the body. They are already there. So once you have an infection, there is a battle going on between the multiplication of germs on the one side and the killing capacity of the white cells on the other side. Whether you feel ill or well depends on the outcome of this battle. So I have a different explanation for the increased severity of COVID-19 or any other infection in a person with type 2 diabetes. To understand that, let's start with COVID. What is COVID? COVID is one of 7 coronaviruses that can cause seasonal influenza in human beings. 3 of them can produce lung infections, and this is why acute severe respiratory syndrome with COVID-19 being the latest. Now, if you go in front of a mirror and breathe on it, that mirror gets cloudy. Why? Because water droplets are coming from your lungs. And COVID, a person with a COVID infection, when he or she breathes, those water droplets carry the virus. If you breathe in that virus, it goes through the nose into your sinuses. There, one of the spikes that forms the corona around the virus, one of the spikes attaches itself to the cell wall. The virus gets inside, it goes to the nucleus and forces the nucleus to issue a work order. with the blueprint of the virus and for more production. That messenger RNA, that is the messenger RNA that is going to produce, keep producing more copies of the virus in that cell. These copies, newly minted copies, can come out of the cell, go through the water droplets to infect other people, or go down into the lungs to infect the lung, creating more severe infection. Now, in order for the cell to manufacture new copies, it needs materials, energy, and a promoter. The materials are called nucleotides. There are 30,000 building blocks or nucleotides in the structure of COVID. COVID is a DNA or genetic molecule. It cannot reproduce itself. That is why it takes over the production machinery of the cell and go through all these instructions. The cell needs energy to produce, to manufacture this. And glucose is the primary source of energy. So now you can imagine, the higher your glucose level in the body, the greater the production. Insulin is a promoter of all cellular activities, including viral multiplication. So if we have both insulin and glucose, then the rate of production of COVID-19 is accelerated. In my opinion, that is the reason why you appear to have reduced immune response, because it is not that your immune response is lower than compared to somebody else, but your production of viruses is accelerated. So this is the same with any other infection. So that being the case, what can we do going forward after the COVID-19? How can we prevent this type of things from happening in a person with type 2 diabetes? For that, it is obvious we have to reduce the amount of glucose and the amount of insulin in the body. By the way, that insulin can be in the body either naturally released from your own pancreas, or in response to a medication, or injected into the body. It will all serve the same purpose: accelerate the viral or the multiplication of the pathogen. So if you want to prevent this from happening again after COVID-19, you need to reduce the level of glucose in the blood, naturalize it, and reduce the amount of insulin. In order to do that, you need to reverse your diabetes or reverse your high blood glucose level. How can this happen? In any disease, if you want to reverse it or prevent it, you need to know the exact cause. Now, diabetes is diagnosed when your blood glucose level is high. There are two types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. In type 1, which mostly occurs in children, they don't have insulin in the body. In type 2, you have insulin, yet you have high blood glucose level. At the time of diagnosis, most people will have normal or even sometimes higher than normal levels of insulin, yet they have high blood glucose level. Why? In order to understand that, the significance of this, you need to know what does insulin do. If you live in a flat or in a house, when the doorbell rings, you know there is somebody outside. You have the option of letting that person in or not. Every cell can use glucose to extract energy. However, when glucose is outside the cell, there is no receptor or a doorbell outside the cell wall for the glucose to let the cell know it is outside. That is the job of insulin. Insulin is the one that rings the doorbell, and then there's no automatic entry for glucose. The cell has to send in a wagon, a glucose transporter, open the door, load up glucose molecules, and bring them in. Now you can see what happens in children when there is no insulin outside, glucose accumulates outside the cell is starving. It cannot produce energy. These children used to die by age 10 because vital cells in vital organs could not function. In 1920, two doctors in in Canada detected insulin. And when insulin was administered to these children, their quality of life improved, their lifespan became normal, and they also found that blood glucose level came down to normal. So in children with type 1 diabetes, insulin is a lifesaver. And the lowering level of glucose can be used as a marker for the improvement or control of type 1 diabetes. Now, later, adults started showing up with high blood glucose level. And endocrinologists thought, yes, this is the same disease, but happening at a later age group. And it was called adult onset diabetes 60 years ago. They were given insulin. Sure enough, the blood glucose level went down, and they thought, okay, simple, just give them insulin. Then came the test to measure the level of insulin in the blood. And to their surprise, they found there's normal insulin in adults who are first diagnosed with, at the time of diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. And that created a problem. They looked at the structure of insulin molecule, that was fine. They took the function, that was fine. Finally, one guy suggested in 1940 in Vienna that perhaps the problem is not the insulin, but the cells are not responding to insulin. And the endocrinologists were very happy because now they have a hypothesis. And they can still use the glucose as a marker. But over time, that marker became the target. Just to clarify that, let me give you this example. When you have an infection, you have fever. When the infection gets better, the fever goes down. So if I tell you I can control the infection by controlling the fever, will that work? That is, in my opinion, what is going on. Everything is concentrating on the number. Keep the number down, they have done their job. If you don't get better because you didn't lose weight, or it is a progressive disease. So that is where I have a difference of opinion with the establishment or established diabetes practitioners. So you have to bear with me. It is strictly my opinion. You can take it or leave it. That's entirely up to you. So why am I saying this? In any scientific discipline, before a hypothesis is accepted as fact, it has to go through a validation process. There are three established criteria. One is logic, the other is mechanism, the third is measurement. Now, the minute-by-minute control of blood sugar, blood glucose, there are 4 hormones involved in it. So according to the endocrinologists, the body became resistant to only insulin. Why? This is a hormone that is naturally present in the body. And suddenly, cells decide, okay, we are not going to, from tomorrow, we are not going to respond to insulin. What is the reason? There is no logical reason given. And that too, only the function of insulin related to glucose metabolism. Insulin has many other functions. None of them are affected, only the glucose metabolism. Why? It makes no logical sense. To me, this concept is it's a bogus one, but self-serving. Again, that's my opinion. The second is the mechanism. what has happened is, instead of saying every cell, there are 200 different types of cell in the body. The endocrinologist picked only 3 as resistant cells: muscles, liver, and fat cells. Why? There is no test to measure the degree of insulin resistance at any one of these sites. There is no mechanism. Is the mechanism same in every site? Nobody knows. Nobody knows the mechanism even in one site, let alone 3. So how can that be possible? How can you accept it as a fact without a mechanism? The third is the measurement. In any science, a scientist from a different lab or different area should be able to test the same hypothesis if he can have a test to conclude, okay, the result is similar or it corresponds. If you are a diabetic for 20 years, or if you are newly diagnosed, or if you have complications, is the degree of insulin resistance, is it the same or worse? There's no test. Without a test to measure the degree of insulin resistance, how do you know whether your disease is getting better if the blood glucose level goes down? Or is it getting worse when you have a complication? Keep in mind, when you give an injection of insulin, the blood glucose level goes down. Where does it go? Does it go into the cell that was supposedly resistant? Now, think about this. If you are resistant to an antibiotic, will the doctor give you that antibiotic? Will you take it? Here you are told you are diabetic because you are resistant to insulin, and what does the doctor give you? So, what I have done is, in my book, Diabetes, the Real Cause and the Right Cure, I have an alternate explanation. What I am suggesting is, type 2 diabetes is a lifestyle condition. That's similar to high cholesterol. How does this work? After a meal, any meal containing carbohydrates, in the modern day, over 50 to 70% of the daily total energy intake comes from grains or grain-based foods. Think about it. When is the last time you had a meal or a snack without a grain product? Within 4 hours, your blood glucose level shoots up. If you take 100 grams of a grain, wheat, corn, or rice, you are absorbing after the meal anywhere from 77 to 80 grams of pure glucose, because each kernel of grain can have thousands of molecules of complex carbohydrate. Each molecule of complex carbohydrate can have up to 200,000 molecules of glucose. So when you eat a tablespoon of rice, you are literally eating glucose. When you eat pasta, noodles, pizza, bread, you are eating glucose. Then you wonder why your blood sugar is high. So this is what is going on. So this elevation of blood glucose level after the meal stimulates your pancreas to release insulin. And insulin goes with the glucose to every cell in the body, 32 trillion cells. Insulin rings the doorbell, every cell picks what it needs. The leftover will come to the liver. The liver can hold only 120 grams as a backup, as glycogen, to be released back into the blood when your blood glucose level goes down. The rest will have to be processed for storage because there is no storage area for glucose. The glucose will be converted into a molecule called acetyl coenzyme A. This acetyl coenzyme A can be used for energy as a fuel by muscles, or converted into triglyceride, which is the fat we store, or into cholesterol based on your genetic makeup. Most of it will go to triglyceride or fat. And the fat is sent to the fat cells for storage. And that is how you gain weight. Gain weight. Most of the weight gain in an adult after age 35 is from storage of fat, not muscle mass, not bone density, not organ weight, but strictly fat. The key part here is we inherit a certain capacity to store fat. That is genetic. If that capacity is filled up, regardless of age or regardless of your status, in the sense whether you're pregnant or not, when that fat storage capacity is filled up, the triglyceride will stay in the blood. When the triglyceride level in the blood goes up, the liver will not convert excess glucose into fat. Why? Most likely, fat is the one that can block arteries. Glucose is water soluble. It can get out of the body through your kidneys. So nature made that decision not to convert the glucose into fat because it can produce more problem. So glucose level goes up and you are diagnosed as a diabetic. So it is a symptom of filled up storage capacity. Just to give you an example, a young lady, pregnant, no family history of diabetes, no previous history of diabetes, gained 25 to 30 pounds, became gestational diabetes. Why? According to the experts, it is because somebody, suddenly she became resistant to insulin. Why? What's the mechanism? And when she loses weight after a pregnancy, it disappears. How can that happen? My explanation is she had a certain amount of fat storage capacity. And when she became pregnant, all her friends encouraged her, eat this food, it's good for the complexion. This is good for the brain. This is good for muscle. This will make the baby taller. And she ate, she filled up the fat storage capacity. And after delivery, when she lost weight, this excess glucose could be stored as fat and her blood glucose level became normal. So that is what I'm suggesting. It is a lifestyle condition. So what do we do? Again, in this book, I'm stating 8 different steps. There was a study done in 1984 in Australia. One Australian researcher took 10 Aborigines with type 2 diabetes on medication. And he asked them, can you go back to the bush and live like your ancestors? And they did. Within 8 weeks, they lost weight, they stopped their diabetic medication, and their blood sugar became normal. Why? In the wild, they moved from one food source to another. They never stayed in one place and eat cultivated grains. There were no grains. That's all it took. They ate everything else: meat, fish, eggs, vegetables, fruits, nuts. Yet their blood sugar became normal. So this is what I am telling you to do. If you are a diabetic, if you are a pre-diabetic, cut down the amount of grain-based foods to 1/2 of what you are eating right now. A word of caution: if you are on insulin, be careful about, or any other diabetic medication, be careful about the evening dose that you take. Because if you take the same evening dose and cut down your intake of grain-based foods, you could have hypoglycemia during the night and you may not know it, especially if you drink any alcohol. Okay, be careful. I have lost friends in that fashion. One guy, he went and looked at you were invited for a great meal. He looked at the food available. He liked them. He took an extra dose of insulin so that he can eat more. Then he had a couple of drinks to increase his appetite. And he felt sleepy or tired. He lied down and he never woke up. Okay. So I'm not suggesting any adjustment in your medication, that's up to you, but this is a word of caution. So try that for about 6 weeks. Cut down your grain-based food intake, because if you don't put that glucose source in your mouth, how can your blood sugar go up? Just think about it. See whether it makes sense to you. What I'm saying, as long as you understand it, I have done my job. Whether you accept it is up to you. Whether you do anything about it, that's entirely yours. I have no problem either way. So, cut down the grain intake and you can control your type 2 diabetes, and you can prevent the severity of an infection later on after COVID-19. Now, while you are doing that, in order to feel well, human body needs over 100 different nutrients. And there is no single meal or a single food group that can provide all the 100 nutrients. This is why nature forced us to eat multiple meals every day. When you sit down to eat, you have no clue what nutrients are missing in the body. What is the body looking for? It is not, I can tell you this, it is not looking for energy, because 1 pound of fat stored in the body contains 3,500 calories that you will not spend in a day. So you have plenty of energy. So, but every meal plan is based on energy content, not nutrient content. But there is an interesting observation. If you look at toddlers, 2 to 6 years of age, you will observe 3 things. They eat only when they are hungry. They eat what they choose. And when they are done, they could care less what is left on the plate. They go out and play. They essentially decide on their own how much to eat, and they grow up normally. If a child can do this, why can't we? And if you want to know how to do it, that is what I suggest in this book: Eat, Chew, Live. I'll give you a clue. Can you think of a food in nature from which an adult can get nutrients from without chewing? That is the problem in the modern diet. How much can you chew rice? How much can you chew pasta, noodles, bread? The moment you stop chewing, you swallow. So the quantity of food intake has gone up. It is easy to do. Almost all the foods that are available, which is easy and cheap, are made with grains. So you have been eating, and this is the reason why the incidence of type 2 diabetes is increasing all around the world. Every government is subsidizing grain farming. So my books are available on Amazon, and my website is drjohnonhealth.com. And I thank you for listening. Mr. Elton, any questions? Can you hear me?
I did.
Okay. Any questions?
You have to do it on your end.
Elizabeth, who are you talking to?
I'm talking to you.
Oh, okay.
John, you've mentioned precisely about what happens when our bodies go into imbalance because of this insulin resistance, and managing. You mentioned a couple of stories. I want to thank you for that, quite frankly, because I think many people, even people who contracted diabetes, for the most part, perhaps they don't have a clear and concise understanding of how this has happened. But succinctly, we're overwhelmed. Our bodies are trying to bounce back from the insulin resistance. We're overwhelmed with sugar, glucose, overwhelmed with glucose. So getting back to a balanced state where our bodies can process a natural amount of insulin and we fall into a better state of health. Could you give us a description on, it may be slightly difficult for the typical person to make the cultural and the eating transitions. There's strong cultural conditions. Even you go out to dinner with friends and everybody's ordering steak, or they're ordering, and steak or meal compliments come a particular way, and you're making adjustments with that. Any solutions that you have for those elements? I mean, I know say no, but tell me.
Well, for any behavior change, it takes about 6 months to establish. So try it slowly. There is no hurry. So cut down gradually. As long as you're going in the right direction, it doesn't matter. Now you keep using the term insulin resistance.
Right.
And I don't like that term because nobody is resisting insulin. If somebody talks to you and if you don't respond, are you resisting conversation?
Yeah. Okay.
If you had a full meal, somebody brings in food, you don't accept it. Are you resisting feeding?
Okay.
So, yes, you are not responding to it. That I agree. But that is passive. When you introduce the term resistance, it becomes active. Then you have to fight. So that is the difference here. They use medications to fight something. But if you are passive, anyway, so any change, you make it gradually and see whether it makes sense. Would you think about this? On the one hand, will you put glucose into your mouth and then take the medication to control the blood sugar, or not put glucose in the mouth? Which one would you prefer? That's your choice.
Wow. Amazing. Great. Didn't realize a bowl of rice had so many calories, or so many what is it? Fat
Glucose
calories.
molecules.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, well, no, it is common to say, oh, if you take whole grain, there is something magical about it. If you take 100 grams of whole grain, then it's got 77 grams of glucose. If you take 100 grams of refined grain, you have 80 grams of glucose. So the difference is 3 grams, and 3 grams comes from the bran. So it is something magical about the bran. What is it? Nobody has identified a compound in the bran that is beneficial. Moreover, if the bran contains that compound, that same compound should be present in the coverings of other nuts and seeds, unless you say whole grain has something different. Now, keep in mind, adult humans have been on the earth for 50,000 years. Grain farming started only 10,000 years ago. So if grains were necessary, we would not be here. Nobody would have survived for 40,000 years without eating cultivated grains. Wild grains, yes, but not cultivated grains. So that is what I'm saying. You can survive without eating any cultivated grains if you choose to, but that is not what I'm asking. Cut down gradually. Because you don't need, no carbohydrate is an essential nutrient. No carbohydrate. Think about the Eskimos in Alaska. How much grains do they eat?
Okay, very good. Are there any more questions specifically? And then we want to go through some principal discussions about our community and helping us organize. In your book, Dr. John, you do mention some strategies and solutions for the typical diabetic and that kind of thing. And I want to encourage each of you to. Oh, Kevin has a question.
Yeah, I got a question. It also, Elton, looks like there's several questions in the chat box if you guys want to take a look at them.
I don't see them.
Yeah, Dr. John, thank you so much. That was just so informative. And a question I have is there an amount of carbs that a type 2 diabetic should strive to stay under in a daily food consumption? In other words, yeah, do you strive for 50 carbs or less, 100? I mean, I don't really have an idea, and I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that.
Kevin, that's an excellent question. What we can do is to analyze the carbohydrate. Well, let me go back to this 1984 experiment the Australian researcher did. He analyzed the amount of food energy these participants consumed on a daily basis before and after. In their urban lifestyle, the amount of daily food energy they consumed from grains or carbohydrate was anywhere from 50 to 70%. In the ancestral lifestyle, it was anywhere from 15 to 30%. So this is why I said, if we can cut down your carbohydrate-based or grain-based food intake to 1/2, then you come close to what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Because it is very difficult to measure from day to day, meal to meal, how much energy, how much. So just if you are eating a bowl of rice, as Elton is suggesting, cut it into half. The problem with soft food is you cannot chew. The second thing you have to do then is don't eat anything. If you're serious about controlling your blood sugar, don't eat anything that does not require chewing. No blending, no pureeing, no soft drinks, because how do you determine the quantity? Let me give you an example. When you are thirsty, can you predetermine the amount of water that will take to quench your thirst at any time? And each time you drink, the quantity is variable. By the time you finish drinking, which may take a minute or less, your thirst is quenched. But think about this. The water you drank is still in your stomach. It has not been absorbed into the body yet. How did the brain know you had enough water to quench your thirst right now? Any idea?
No.
If you are blindfolded, if I give you something to drink, you will know immediately whether it is water or wine or beer or coffee or tea. How?
Smell it. You smell it.
Water? Can you smell water?
Oh, no, you can't. You can't.
So how do you know you are drinking water?
From taste.
The taste.
Your
The
taste.
taste.
Your taste buds. What I'm suggesting is those taste buds not only detect what is going down, but it's also metering how much is going down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There is a similar mechanism for nutrients also. There are taste buds and smell receptors. They can detect the quality of nutrient. That is how you enjoy the flavor. When you have a cold, your food doesn't taste good, but you can still taste salt and sweet and sour and bitter.
Mhm.
Why? Because the nose is blocked. So in order to enjoy the full flavor of the meal, you need your smell receptors. But they are also metering how much is going down. In order for that to happen, the rate of release of nutrients in the mouth has to be slower. And that is what you accomplish by chewing. But if you throw the water down the throat when you're thirsty, you have no control. You will end up drinking more, I submit. So similarly, if you swallow fast, you are eating much more. You have no control how much. If you are hungry, that first bite you take is so enjoyable. But after a few minutes, it doesn't taste as good. But do you stop eating?
No.
Because you have been told. See, I grew up in India. So I was counseling some adults in the United States, and I told them, when I grew up, certain days I didn't feel hungry. Now I know why. So they asked why. because you were eating for me. There were starving children in India.
All right,
That's
I need
funny.
to.
Oh,
I need to. I need to
Dr.
interrupt.
Putnam,
There's some
Dr. Putnam
questions in
and,
the chat.
okay,
Hold
Dr.
on, Elton.
Putnam and Ms. Brown have a question. Dr. Putnam? Dr. Putnam, I'll ask it for you if you like.
Yeah.
She wants to know, let's see, some scientists say that diabetes is another form of Alzheimer's. Any thoughts on that?
Well, that's an interesting question, because they're trying to make Alzheimer's a type 3 diabetes, for example. What they are suggesting is Alzheimer's because nerve cells are not responding to insulin. So there's a third type of insulin resistance. The problem with that is insulin does not get into the brain area. There's a brain barrier. The glucose gets in there, but not insulin. So to suggest that neurons are resistant to insulin, I don't know how you can say that. Secondly, different cells have different types of glucose transporters. If you take muscle as a glucose transporter, which will go to the door, as I said, when the doorbell rings, and bring in glucose only in the presence of insulin. The same glucose transporter, there are two forms, they call the isoforms of the same transporter. The other transporter is activated when you are exercising. Okay? It does not need insulin to activate the second type of transporter. It can go when you are exercising, because most of the time you exercise in between meals when your insulin level is very, very low. So you cannot expect insulin to stimulate entry of glucose. So nature has made a different types of glucose transporter to bring in glucose when you are exercising. But the way endocrinologists get around that is you need exercise because it improves muscle sensitivity to insulin. So my question is, if insulin is not there, what's the point in increasing the sensitivity? On the other hand, there is a completely different set of transporters. Similarly, in the nerve, in the neurons are the control. They are the ones that decide who gets what. So they have to be functional. That's the government in the body. It has to be functional all the time. They have very special glucose transporters which are not influenced by insulin. So that is way, that's one. What may be happening is, now all of you have heard of A1C testing. What does that mean? Glucose can get attached to many other proteins in the body. A1C refers to the amount of glucose attached to hemoglobin A1. And that is fairly constant, because you can take an average of 3 months, because the lifespan of a red blood cell is 3 months. The hemoglobin is inside the red blood cell. So you get an average amount of excess glucose or glucose in the body. There are other proteins also where glucose is attached to. If there is excess insulin in the brain area, this glucose can get attached to proteins in the neurons. And the proteins, they are a very peculiar construction. When they are active, they stretch out. When they are inactive, they fold. So they stay there. But if there is excess glucose attached to them, that folding may not be accurate. And if the folding is not accurate, the maintenance is not correct. So the function of the neuron goes down gradually, because there is excess glucose molecules interfering with the function of each and every tiny protein. And this is what then leads to damage to structure. You get the plaques and you get the deterioration of function. So to me, that is what I think is happening. So excess glucose, it has been going on for a long time, that gradually produces damage. Once a neuron is damaged, it cannot be replaced. So that's why you're stuck. You may not progress it, but you cannot recover it. Think about it. Each neuron is attached to 10,000 different neurons directly or indirectly. So even if you replace a neuron, how can you reproduce all the connections? It's not possible. Thank you for that question. That's a very good question.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, anything else?
Ms. Brown asked the question, are there any supplements or minerals or vitamins that can help with the replacement of insulin, is the question, Ms. Brown?
Ask Jerry to answer that.
Supplements to nutrients that we may be missing in our body.
Okay.
Well, Jerry can answer that better than I can. Because anyway, human body needs 100 different nutrients. When you sit down to eat, you don't know what your body is looking for. Let me give you an example. Suppose you go for a Chinese buffet, 100 items. How many will you choose? 5 or 6 or 7, based on what? Your previous experience with each one of them and your anticipation of enjoyment. Okay, we are having lunch, you ate that. We are going back to the same buffet for evening supper. Will you take exactly the same 5 or 6 that you enjoyed for lunch? Will you? Chances are no. Why? Because now you want to try something else. Why? What I'm suggesting is there is a physiological reason. The nutrients you absorbed from your lunch, they are still in your body. Whereas the body has used up some other nutrients, which based on your previous experience, your subconscious mind will tell the conscious mind the other foods look more appealing because they have the nutrients we need right now. So that is the type of control you have. This is what the toddlers I referred to earlier, they are using that. It is common. It is natural. Every child, whether animal or humans, are born with the capability to regulate the nutrient intake. All you have to do is to provide the material, provide the food, and the child can decide how much, what, and when. So we have the capability, but no one food or any group or meal can do that. If you want to take supplements, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that you cannot rely on the supplement to get all on a timely manner.
I would like to bring in Jerry Baker on that question. He's a representative for Shockley. And if there's some idea that you have about supplements and vitamins related to insulin, please share with us, Jerry.
Excuse me. Thank you, Alvin. Yeah. Bottom line is we don't get the nutrients we need, at least in the standard American diet, which, if you look at the abbreviation, is SAD. So the SAD diet that we are eating in this country really lacks a lot of the vitamins and minerals that we need, because the food is processed. There's pesticides and herbicides that impact, and of course you have GMO, so it's genetically modified. So yeah, of course, that's the whole basis for what we do, is to help people identify what nutrients they, vitamins and minerals and so on, that their bodies are missing, and help to replace them with high quality supplements. So that, I guess, is the short answer. I'll talk more when I'm on at 10:30.
Okay. No problem. Thank you so much, Jerry. I appreciate that. I do want to stress to our audience, this is a health reset, and the focus of what we're offering to you today through Dr. John and his very capable delivery are that there are solutions, and we may be facing chronic ailments and illnesses that we don't think we have solutions for. We're so grateful. And Dr. John, in his infinite wisdom, has produced various books. Eat, Chew, Live, which is the center for this discussion, is wow. I mean, you've shared with us some very insightful facts and data, Dr. John, about how we can improve our health through strategies. And this is all. I mean, and we take this time for this event to share with you. There are strategies. There are some solutions. There are some alternative steps that we can and should be prepared to take action and control over our lives and tomorrow. And so part of the purpose for our event program too is that we're moving from COVID, and now we have to be focused on what actions can be taken and executed that give us our control back. And I know there are people who've been put against the wall for whatever reason, and that kind of thing. So your involvement is essential. We're so thankful that you're here with us. And we've got Dr. John. Give Dr. John a round of applause, please. Thank you. So thank you. We're also delighted. See his list of books that he's written. He's served in medicine from India to the U.S. and Canada, and so so he brings a wealth of information about what we can redeem and understand. And we're gonna move on. But before I leave you there, I just want to so that this is the definition of insulin resistance according to medical dictionaries. Is when insulin resistance, when cells in your muscles, fat, and liver don't respond well to insulin and can't use glucose from your blood for energy. And so when that happens, the pancreas makes more insulin. Wow. So that was awesome. So where do we go from here? I want you to really, I want you to get something from this. Remember, our essential objective is that, this is going to be a great day, and it's not what happens to you, but it's what happens in you and through you. So I'm enormously inspired by those comments, and so we're coming up next with our speaker.
Before we go there, Elton, I need to do a little housekeeping.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to purchase a book from Dr. John, his website is drjohnonhealth.com. And thank you once again, Dr. John. That was really, really powerful. Now, I just want to give you all, today we've got our sponsors, and we want to thank each and every one of them. And as you know, when you write a book, you have to put your heart and soul into a book and tell your story. And these are our sponsors, and we are promoting these books today. So we hope that you will buy one or all and encourage these authors as they launch their books with us. And I just want to give you a whole idea of what's going on with the conference. So today is the actual day. So we're going to be doing all day Zoom, and we have wonderful, wonderful speakers. I have emailed each of you a packet with the agenda. And if you haven't read it, please do so. So you'll get familiar with the speakers and everybody's bios and links. So please feel free to reach out and network with everybody before and after. You may not want to buy anything, but you could refer business, make a friend, connect with someone. So use that booklet that I have worked so hard to put together so that you can connect with everyone. Then tomorrow, we will only meet at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. And this is an award that we're giving the authors and speakers and some of the doctors whose books we've reviewed. So join us. If you're getting an award, that's wonderful. But if you're not, we'd like to get a little audience. So if you want to come and support the authors, please do so. The Zoom link is the same as it is today. And we do have an alternative Zoom link just in case we have some crashers on the call. And then on Friday, we will have on demand. So all these sessions are being recorded for you, and I will share the link once I load the videos, and we will have on demand on Saturday as well on our social media channels as well. Does anybody have a question about the 3 days? Okay, so moving along, I think because we're running close on time, I'm going to just go ahead and bring to the place, I'm going to bring Kevin Curtsey, who's our next author, and I'll let our moderator, Elton, introduce him. And then the panel will go after Jerry's presentation. So if the computer's going fine and we're on a roll, then we'll just keep going. If anybody needs a break, because in this schedule, I had said we were going to take a break. Does anybody need a break, or shall we proceed? Okay, we have a packed day. Okay, so let's keep rolling. Okay, unless we have computer issues. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to get everyone else. So Kevin, can you, Elton, you want to introduce Kevin?
Yes, let me take this moment to introduce to you Mr. Kevin Curtsey. And Kevin has an amazing story. And his story is rooted in example and testimony. And it's an emotional story, and one that can drive and will drive you to probably a cardiac, a calcium scan. And it's the center of his story. And he's written a book to articulate what he's gone through. And the name of the book is called Life 2.0. And I'm so glad we met, Kevin. I haven't taken my test yet, but I will. but Kevin, I'm so glad to have you with us, and thank you for your book. And please share with us details about your book that we need to know.
I'd be happy to. Just as a quick mic check, can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, listen, everyone, thank you for giving your time today and particularly joining this session. I'm very glad to be here. A little bit about me. My name is Kevin Curtsey. We'll have been married 40 years this coming May to an amazing Brad. You can probably see her picture back over this way. I've got a son, a daughter-in-law, and two of the most amazing grandsons. And most notably, I'm quite humbled by life. And I want to start by saying, with God's help, I really do hope to inspire each and every one of you